Hello and welcome to today's Sky High Scoop, mastering the art of investing in a great condo building. Today's episode is all about smart downtown Toronto condo acquisitions because finding the perfect nest is about more than just the square footage of your suite. We're here to help you navigate the vertical city and make wise choices that'll pay off in the long run. In this episode, we're giving you an insider's guide to essential factors you should consider when buying a condo in a condo building as an asset, rather than focusing solely on your four walls. We'll delve into everything from the status certificate and maintenance fees to elevators, concierge services, and neighborhood development. Our goal is to arm you with the information you need to invest confidently in high-rise living. So join us as we unlock the secrets of downtown Toronto's condo scene. It's week 4 of April 2023. We are Fox Marin Associates, Toronto's most innovative and active brokerage in central and downtown Toronto. We aren't here to regurgitate boring stats. You can find those anywhere. We're here to share what we're seeing going on in the Toronto real estate market in real time on a weekly basis so you can be in the know and make informed decisions. If you're interested in getting an up-to-the-moment opinion on what is happening in Toronto real estate right now, learning what's going down, boots on the ground before it becomes a statistic, then you're in the right place. My name's Ian Busher. I am a broker with the FM team. Keep her number handy. This is Cory Marin, our in-house hype girl and resident expert listing broker, and a good man to know, Mr. Ralph Fox, our analytical, investor-driven macro picture watcher. We do this every week, so hit, or as Ralph likes to say, smash that subscribe button, and join us for the latest updates every 7 days. All righty. Now, are we ready? We're going to dive into the heart of today's episode. We know you want to ensure your purchase is more than just a pretty space. Say goodbye to tunnel vision on your four walls and hello to a well-rounded approach that will maximize your investment potential. Cory, tell us about the topic generator. What did you call it? The random generator?
The random generator?
Tell us about that,
I'm so excited
please.
about this. Well, for those of you who don't know me, I do love board games and all types of games. So this is a way for us to discuss this exciting and enthralling topic in a creative and exciting, magical, mystical way. And so I have the random generator box right here. Mm-hmm. And inside this box, I have a bunch of ideas from the team about what makes a condo building in Toronto great. And just to be clear, we're not talking about the suite itself, the layout and the features and finishes. We're talking about when you're looking to acquire a condo, what are some things you may or may not be thinking about as you make an acquisition in this type of property asset. So we have a bucket of ideas, and I thought it would be fun if I put my hand into the random generator and pulled out a topic for us to discuss because I know it's packed full of some great material for our listeners today. Does this sound like a good idea, boys?
Yes.
Are you guys
Absolutely.
in?
I feel like we need a drum roll.
Oh, that'd
We
be
do.
great.
We do. Yeah, we got to work on our sound effects.
Yeah.
Yeah. One day we'll get that advanced.
We'll get, yeah.
Okay.
It's my job for this week.
Send the note to the producer.
Okay. So I'm going to pick at random a topic. I'll toss it out to one of you, and then we can discuss and then move on. There's a lot of quality ideas that have come from our awesome team. And I think this is going to be really beneficial for our listeners because there's a lot of things I think they really should be considering. And if you've never lived in a condo before, you might not know some of these things. And if you've lived in a condo, you learn through experience. I know I certainly have through my experience living in condos. So we'll have lots of interesting anecdotes about some of these things too. So I'm going in.
Excellent. Bring it on.
You can hear it.
Yeah.
It's generating at random. Exactly.
That
All
wheel
right.
on The Price is Right.
I'm nervous. What's it going to be?
The first one was like kind of boring, so I put it back.
We're already cheating. We haven't even started.
Oh, okay. Here we
Not
go.
that one.
Okay.
Not that.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
What do we
The
got?
first one, just so people know there's actual context here, I'm not faking it. All right. I'm going to throw this out to Ian because we know that
Must be a
canines
hard
love.
one.
Yes. We know canines always love Ian the best as much as we want them to love us more. So I'm going to
It
toss
helps
out.
walking around with dog treats.
I know.
Liver
you
in
cheat.
your back pocket. Yeah.
It's true.
You
Yep.
cheat.
Put a little bacon behind your ear before you leave the house in the morning. Yeah.
All right. So the first one is considering pet rules.
Absolutely. On an MLS listing, we have the option of putting under pet restrictions, we get to check yes or no or restricted. And sometimes people think that restricted means no. And just to be perfectly clear here, right out of the hopper, that's not the case. If it says pets allowed, yes, I mean, this is something where we should check the status certificate for some clarity. But are pets allowed? Yes. Are pets allowed? No. Usually the no means 100% no. Restricted, on the other hand, means yes, but with some caveats in place, with some rules around things like how many, what type. So when you read the rules for the building, you may end up discovering that it's no dogs over 30 pounds is a common one. No more than 2 pets per suite, so you can have a cat and a dog. Maybe it's a cat and a dog that isn't over 30 pounds. Another common one is no domesticated pets is some of the language that's used as well. So, no snake collection, no spider collection, none of that weirdness. Not that that's, I mean, if that's what you're into, it's totally fine with me. But the building might not be cool with that. So we've got the options of yes, but don't assume that it's yes 100%. No, you can kind of assume that that's a flat out no pets at all. And restricted is get a copy of the rules, probably from the listing agent via your buying agent, and find out what those restrictions are. And if you've got 2 big dogs, you're going to want to check this in advance because you don't want to choose between the sweet and fluffy.
I know, Fluffy. Fluffy always gets screwed.
Absolutely.
And
did I hit all the
buildings
points, do you think?
You did. And
Okay.
buildings are very anti-big dog, I find. They love the little dogs. And oftentimes
Yes.
the condo rules will say you can have a pet under 30 or 40 pounds and you have to be able to carry the pet through the common elements. And
Right.
so our dog, who's 100 pounds, would not be permitted in most condo buildings, even though he's so lovable and gracious.
And never barks.
I know the little dogs are the yappy ones.
Yeah.
And just because you see a dog in a building, if you're viewing the property, this is what often buyers think. They're like, well, I saw a German Shepherd. They must be allowed. I'm like, no. We've got to double check this. So I would say more often than not, there's restrictions than a free-for-all.
Absolutely.
That's a really good point, Kori. If you're in a building and you do see a big German Shepherd, maybe even that German Shepherd lives there, or maybe they part-time live there. But
visitor.
if all of a sudden you get a German Shepherd and your neighbor complains and you're not compliant with the Condo Corp laws and they make enough of a stink about it, you're going to have a really bad situation on your hands, and you never want to have to be in a position to even consider saying goodbye to Fluffy, because at the end of the day, it obviously would be the condo.
Yes.
I would choose Fluffy over the condo.
Oh,
If
yeah.
Fluffy has to go, I go too.
Yeah.
Also, one thing to add here, too, is there's a building down on Queens Quay where they didn't have a pet restriction for the first few years, and then they implemented it. But they let the people who had a big dog keep the dog because they were there. It's sort of a grandfathering
Grandfather,
clause, right?
yeah.
And so you might see a Great Dane in the elevator, but when that Great Dane is gone, that owner can't get another one. Now, that rule is in effect for everyone after that fact, and even that person going forward. So, again, don't go by your eye, go by the rule of the building.
100%.
Yeah.
And oftentimes, guide dogs and therapy dogs are permitted as an exclusive to the rules as well.
And
Service
I can't
dogs are
tell
so
you,
cute.
I can't tell you how many times we have buyers or renters. They're coming to us and they're like, "I've got a big dog and I can't find a place to live." And so sometimes that's why townhouses or lower level townhouses with direct outdoor access, even though they're condoized, can hold a lot of value because they're specific to dog owners who don't, especially big dog owners, being one ourselves, all 3 of us actually. It's a real thing, and sometimes people get a big dog and they don't even think about their personal living circumstances and what kind of duress that could put them under in the city, because as we all know, big dogs are very much discriminated against, and as we discussed earlier on, unjustifiably, because it's not the size of the dog, it's the energy of a dog, and it's how well the dog is trained.
Absolutely.
Ralph,
Oh boy.
this is a big one.
Oh
And for our
boy.
listeners out here, this is probably the most important one. Maintenance fees.
Oh yeah. This is a huge, huge topic. So right off the top, the first thing that I'm going to say is that a lot of people get worked up about maintenance fees, some justifiably and some unjustifiably. The first thing is whether it's freehold or a condo where you pay maintenance fees. There is no such thing as a maintenance-free property. And so if you own a house, you're going to be paying for the maintenance of that house one way or another. Just maybe not on an amortized monthly basis, but generally in giant, holy shit chunks. So I just need to get that out of the way. The second thing is that all buildings do have maintenance fees. The average in Toronto right now is probably about 80 cents a square foot. Anything over $1 starts to become a little bit significant, and significant in the way where it affects price. So I would look at it almost like a scale where you have low maintenance fees, high prices, and then as the maintenance fees start to creep up, the prices will be affected in the same way. And so condos do tend to have a shelf life, and over time, the rate at which they appreciate, meaning they go up in value, starts to decrease as the buildings get older and the cost to run these buildings start to eat up into it. And that's why it's amazing, you know, someone will send a listing, they're like, oh my gosh, 1,700 square feet for only $450,000 in downtown Toronto. And you're like, yeah, the maintenance fees are $3,000 a month. So it's really important to understand the relationship between maintenance fees and value. But no matter what property you're looking at, you will definitely be paying to maintain it. And then there are some buildings that are better run or better built than others, and I think you'll see that affected in prices.
For sure. And then in addition to that, you'll also want to find out what's included in your maintenance fees. So sometimes some buildings have all the utilities included, which, you know, significantly impacts your monthlies and is awesome when they are included. And then what services are included as well, and what amenities do the buildings have, and are you going to use those amenities as well? So if you have a building with lots of amenities like an outdoor pool and 24-hour concierge and a gym and a lot of the services, over time your maintenance fees are going to go up. So that's just something you need to consider and weigh when you're looking at maintenance fees. And a lot of people, especially when they're first looking at buildings, they're really drawn to a lot of the bells and whistles, and then they never use any of the amenities. Like, I've lived in tons of condo buildings, and I don't think I've ever used the pool once. I don't want to swim with my neighbors. I would be like, I'm in my bathing suit, and it's like my neighbor Jack is down the hall. I just feel weird. I just don't like it. So that's something else to weigh when it comes to the maintenance fees as well.
Absolutely.
Oh, and then in addition to that, when you have parking and locker, you pay a maintenance fee on your parking and locker as well. And people don't know that. It's its own separate title. It's its own separate PIN. That means you can sell it as you could any other piece of property that you own in a building or house. And so it's separately deeded, I guess is the best way to explain it. And so that also has its own maintenance fee. So if you have a parking and locker, you're paying a fee for those two in your monthlies. So that's something else to keep in mind.
I was also going to throw out condos. Co-ops and co-ownerships also will include the property tax. So that's why those will seem a lot higher. But it's you need to be careful and make sure that you understand what is actually included. So it might not be as bad as it seems when you subtract those line items. Yeah.
Exactly. All right, I'm going into the generator. All right, I'm excited. I love this. Oh, this is actually good because we're just talking about it. Amenities. Let's talk about amenities.
Perfect. Yeah.
The generator is on our side today.
Kori, you were already talking about it. Do you want to keep going?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
So for our listeners or viewers, amenities in a building are used a lot to help sell the building, first of all. So when you purchase into a condo building, especially pre-construction, they'll really use the amenities to try to draw buyers and investors into the building. And these can include a wide variety of services. As mentioned, a gym, a pool. You'll see some condo buildings that have bowling alleys, golf, what's it called?
Golf simulator.
Simulator.
Yeah. Squash courts. Yeah.
Squash courts. You'll see I think I said movie theaters. You'll see, party rooms, rooftop terraces with barbecues, pet cleaning stations, which is awesome if you have a pet. But of course, the pet has to be under 40 pounds, so I don't know. And then also
lounge. Yep.
business lounge,
Yep.
a whole bunch of stuff. And you pay for these when you live in the building. And yes, they're very attractive to potential renters, investors, and end users. But then again, over time, I don't think they're used as much as people think they're going to be used. I think the best amenity out of all the amenities out there is a concierge.
Yep.
And I don't think you even know how much you will use a concierge until you live in a building. And they're awesome. They can, especially if you live in a building with a great concierge with an awesome attitude, it's so helpful. It is like living in a hotel. So they can manage your, keys, pass-offs, parcels. They're practically like part-time, post office men and women now because they're handling so many Amazon packages coming in, flower deliveries, communications with relatives coming and staying. They keep the building secure. They'll help manage your Uber delivery for your dinner that day. Like, it's really awesome. And I would say out of all the amenities, that one for me personally has always had the most amount of value. And when you look now at buildings that do not have a concierge service, a lot of buyers are questioning, like, well, what do I do with my packages and where do they go and how do I manage all of that? And so some buildings have a good system in place and others do not. So this is something else, buyers out there. If there is no concierge, you're going to want to find out how to manage your packages and parcels. Should they be delivered? Where do they go and how do they get to you?
Couple things I'd like to add. My favorite amenity in a condo is a delivery room.
Yes.
And you'll see so many of the condos built pre-Amazon or pre-pandemic for sure. And you walk into the lobbies and they've got like boxes stacked like all the way to the ceiling because they just weren't built with consideration of people receiving deliveries. And it's so nice when you walk into some of these newer buildings and they have an actual locked door package room. So your Toronto Maple Leafs pajamas are going to be tucked away safe and sound because you got that $5 coupon on Amazon at 4 o'clock in the morning and just couldn't resist. So that's really important. A lot of our investor clients or clients who are sensitive to maintenance fees really tend to look for more bare bones because they realize that their maintenance fees are accompanying services or they're accompanying costs that really rarely get used. I cannot tell you how many times, I see people get so worked up about the party room that in 3 years' time, they are never going to use once. The party room is like the biggest, oh my God, look at this party room. We'll have all our friends. No one wants to go to a party in a condo room. I'm telling you this
worst.
Right now. Nobody. Nobody. Just, we live in a big city with a lot of bars and restaurants and all kinds of cool things. Nobody wants to see your party room. And after you move in, you're not even going to want to see it. So get that out of your head. And sometimes having concierges isn't all it's cracked up to be. So concierges can definitely be a little bit invasive. And sometimes it's nice if you're living in the big city just to have a bare bones condo where all of the maintenance goes to the suite and keeping things as inexpensive as possible. So, people feel a lot of different things about that. But, I think there's a lot of, and that's why you said, Kori, this is a hot topic because people have a lot of strong feelings on what should be included, what they want to have included. Do they want full service? Do they want to pay for full service? Or do they want the location and the lower operating costs? I tend to be in the latter. And viewing the city as my amenity.
Totally.
It's my playground.
I get why they're attractive. I think as a buyer, you just have to consider, will I actually use this? Okay, I'm back in the random generator.
All right.
This is a really good one. Good job, team, for coming up with this idea. Proximity to green space and or transit. I feel like Ralph is just itching to answer this. I'm going to start with Ralph, and then Ian, please jump in.
Okay.
I love answering my own question. I think it's really important for value, and I think it's pretty important for ease of lifestyle. I think with the pandemic, access to green space has become just very high on people's needs and wants. And I think that when somebody's looking at a condo, they'll make sacrifices on some things, knowing that they have access to green space. So, oh, I don't need a balcony, or I'll just take a smaller balcony and a smaller footprint because the park is my terrace. Mm-hmm. So I think people really, really have an appreciation for that. And I think now more so than ever, and I expect that trend to continue. And then transit, there's a war on cars in Toronto. Traffic is insane. People don't want to drive. So the preferred way of getting around in the city, presuming you arrive alive, is the TTC. Say. Yeah. So,
like, is it?
yeah. As long as you don't get stabbed, beaten, whatever, and you arrive there safely. But it is the way more and more people are electing not to have cars just because it's just so expensive. And so either Uber or the TTC is the way people are getting around, and the easier and more accessible a property is to TTC and to transit, the greater value and the greater utility that it has. And so the other aspect to it is sometimes it doesn't even have to be existing. It can be, I bought this condo and the relief line is coming here, or the Ontario line is coming here, and in 5 or 10 or 50 years' time, there will eventually be a train station here or a subway station. And so the thought of that is very helpful. And I've seen a few studies that show that when you live in proximity to mass transit, the value of your property goes up significantly. Mm-hmm. So from a lifestyle, from a transit standpoint, from an accessibility standpoint, and from a value standpoint of appreciation, these are things people are going to want to live near. They say the 3 biggest rules of real estate are location, location, location. Transit and outdoor space are a huge component to that equation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100% agree. I've got a client right now who owns a condo and just wants to relocate because he's in the middle of a concrete jungle. And speaking of the pet rules, he's got a little dog, and he's like, I go downstairs, there's nowhere to go. I didn't have the dog when I got here, but now I would really appreciate having the park, having the lake, having a walking path somewhere close by instead of just shopping and things for me.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that totally makes sense.
Comes up all the time.
The other thing to think about with transit, though I totally agree it adds value to the property, you also have to consider noise. And I'm not talking necessarily about subway, but I'll just use my own personal example. One of my condos was on Queens Quay. Bought this condo, got it for a really good price, go to bed for my first night, and all I can hear is the streetcar going down the tracks, and like sound of it, like the doors opening and closing, and that like sound, that ding. I was like, oh my gosh. Mm-hmm. Like I was like, this is the worst decision. And I'm not even noise sensitive at all. I can sleep through anything. And I was like, oh my God, I'll never be able to sleep ever again near this streetcar. I mean, mind you, over time you get used to it. So I think being close to transit's good, but if you're sensitive to noise or anything like that, just beware exactly when you are in proximity to, the humming or the sound or the vibration of it all, because it's certainly a lot.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I love it. We're just speeding through. All right. All right, boys.
Big money. No whammies.
Oh, this is a really good one. And if you guys don't want to answer this one.
Did you say no whammies?
I did. Yes.
No, only a specific person from a specific elk
above a certain
would
age
understand. Yeah,
I have no idea what you guys are
relevance
talking about.
of that. Yeah,
there you go.
Whammies?
You just proved Ralph's point. Unless you're just trying to look young by pretending you don't know what it is. Sort of a terrible game show. A whammy was like you lose your turn. Doesn't.
Oh.
Yeah. I'm old. I'm proud of it.
Yeah.
I'm old. Yeah. Sorry. What do you got?
I can't even read that.
No, I didn't want you to. This is such a good one.
Garbage chute. Did I see that?
Something about,
yes.
I saw garage.
Garbage chutes.
Yeah.
The location and the collection area.
Mm-hmm.
Ian, do you have any experience near this? I certainly can jump in because I have had this experience too.
Yes, and unless it's a separate thing in the random generator, that's also proximity to banks of elevators too, right?
Yes.
So essentially, both of these are noise-making devices. So if the garbage chute happens to be right beside where your bedroom is in the floor plan of your unit, and somebody on your floor, gets up at 2 o'clock in the morning and decides that's when they want to throw away all their glass bottles down the recycling chute or something.
Worst.
Yeah, you're going to be hearing that. So, it's a double-edged sword. You also don't want the garbage chute to be a quarter mile from your suite, but somewhere in between. If you get the choice, don't be right beside the garbage chute for noise, and don't have it be, down 3 hallways so that you have a 100-meter dash to throw out your trash. And then the elevator bank is the same thing. Most of the time, people push the button, stand there, leave. It's fine. But this just happened to me a few weeks ago. I had people considering a fantastic south-facing 2-bedroom, beautiful unit right across from the 3 elevator doors, and they had 2 dogs. We're covering all the bases with these clients. And I said, two drunk guys are going to come out of somebody's house party because they don't use the party room, and they're going to push the button and wait for the elevator and stand there yelling at each other even though they're 3 feet apart because they've had too many wobbly pops. And your dogs are going to go off. And anyway, it's just, again, it goes back to proximity and noise, right? The elevator right across from your door might seem handy, but maybe just give yourself 20, 30 feet between you and the elevator door at least, and you'll be in better shape.
Way better. And in addition to the garbage thing, because I have experienced that very thing many times in many buildings, so I am very specific about where that garbage chute is also they stink. Like they just do
good
rooms.
Point. Yeah.
They smell gross.
No matter what they do. Yeah.
No matter what. I don't care what scent they put in there. Disgusting. And then also we have sold many condos like this. I've never experienced it myself, where there's like a beautiful terrace on a lower floor, because sometimes the bigger terraces are on lower floors. And then beneath that is where they have all the garbage bins underneath that. And then the garbage trucks come and collect, once a week, from the garbage dumpsters. And I'm telling you, in like May, June, July, the wasps on your terrace are going to be like all over the place because they're so drawn to the garbage dumps or dumpsters. So you want to be very aware of this. And like, don't worry, buyers out there. Like if you feel like you're being anal asking, like find out where all these things are and go look at it. Like the chute, the elevators, and the garbage disposal, the whole process, like figure it out. And we've had buyers ask us like what day they come pick up the garbage. Just find out. You're going to be living there. You might as well know. So this really impacts your lifestyle when you're living in a condo community for sure.
Yeah.
The other thing I would just add specific to elevators is you also want to be cognizant of how many elevators there are. So, for example, when you're riding up to the 120th floor to look at a penthouse or a sub-penthouse, and you realize there's only like 2 elevator banks for the entire building, that's a problem. So you want to make sure that there's ample elevators, because it's almost written into the status certificates of every condo in Toronto that one permanently has to be broken or under repair, and somebody has to be continuously moving in and then disappeared for 4 hours, and the concierge can't find them. So that's 2 right off the top.
Yeah.
So you don't want to be in a big tower with only 2 working elevators, where 800 people are living during rush hour, and you in that scenario you don't want to forget anything, right? You don't want to leave your keys in the apartment and realize that after your 20-minute sojourn to the lobby. So things to think about for sure.
Okay, speaking of other things to consider, your parking spot. Your locker location, and are they accessible? Ralph.
Yeah, this is a big one. You definitely want to make sure that your Escalade is going to fit into the into the smart car space that the investor bought from the developer to save $7,500. I mean, I once rented a condo years ago, and I didn't look at the parking spot, and my car wouldn't fit in the parking spot. And so I would kind of jump around to different ones because I was friends. This building did have a concierge, so that was a benefit. But then eventually it caught up to me, and it became a real problem. It was stressful. So you definitely, if you're renting, or, more importantly, obviously, if you're buying, you definitely want to make sure that your car fits in the spot. And shockingly, there are some parking spots that cars cannot fit in and out of. I've seen it before in buildings.
Yeah, when there's
that
like two giant poles.
Yeah,
cement poles.
We had a client, and he had a bigger size truck, and he bought a pre-construction condo, and he was assigned a parking spot that you could just not physically get any car in or out of. So definitely make sure your parking spot is usable for the size car that you are driving. And then, it's a real advantage to be close to the door if you're schlepping things.
Convenience.
And there's different types of parking spots as well. And so is it easy to get in and out of? Is it close to the door? Can you carry bags and stuff easily to and from? Are you on P17 and like ringing down the bottom and ringing back up versus P1 being superior? I've done that before as well. So that's important to make sure of. And sometimes we've seen parking spots not even in the same building. Sometimes they're to an attached condo, and you have to hike for 17 hours. So make sure you check out the parking spot, and that it's suitable for your needs, and that it's a good one, because it could be a real problem if you drive or rely on your car. And also just knowing, if you don't drive, what are rental rates for parking spots, because in some buildings you're able to capture $300 a month, which is pretty friggin' awesome if you ask me. So those are all things to think about with regards to parking.
And what about storage lockers? Ian.
Oh, same thing to a certain degree. Where is it? Is it convenient? Sometimes a well-designed condo building might have the locker in tandem with the parking spot. That's a super handy thing. And some buildings don't necessarily have the lockers downstairs in parking either. Sometimes they're on the second floor. Sometimes they're even as convenient as somewhere else on the same floor as the unit you're purchasing. It's not as common, but it does happen. So I would say convenience, and then also size and lighting and security. So lockers can often kind of have a cage, either wooden or steel. But yeah, what do you want to keep in that locker, and will it be safe there? Will you feel confident locking your things in there? The other thing I was going to say too is I think bikes are important to a lot of people. So with regard to both the parking spot and the locker, is there a bike room? Do you have the option of attaching a bike post to your parking spot?
Yes.
Will your bike fit in your locker for a couple of months if your suite is not very big? All of these are kind of also good things to consider.
You guys are crushing the auto generator today. All right. Well, we kind of went through that. That was concierge and parcel management. All right. This is a good one. Ralph, I'm going to give this to you because you work a lot on pre-construction. Developer's reputation. What did you just sigh?
I felt
You're wearing them out.
Coming
You're
my
wearing
way.
them out.
I felt a double whammy coming my way. What was the question again?
The developer's reputation.
Yeah, that's really important, especially in newer buildings. You just really want to make sure that it's built well. Like, I mean, not all buildings are equal, and not all developers are equal. And you really want to make sure that you're in a building. And there are notorious buildings to people in our circle, professionals, professional realtors in our circle, who know that there are buildings that are stay away from. There's a builder that went bankrupt, Urban Core, aka Urban Crap.
Yep.
And, anything that was built by them, is probably going to have issues, and the status is probably going to have issues, and the maintenance fees are probably going to have issues, because they're going to be doing a lot of backpedaling, trying to fix the sloppiness and cheapness of their work. So it's really important, because when you buy a condo, you're not really just buying a unit, you're buying into the assets and liabilities of a corporation. proportional to the square footage of your property. And so you could end up with a lot of costs and a lot of headaches and a lot of issues, and maybe even drama, because your condo corp is going to have to be very engaged. And so it's really important to know that you're getting a building that's known to have a good reputation and that's known to have been built by a good developer, because the valuations generally tend to follow that.
Yes. Great answer.
I have
All right.
what I call a blacklist. I tell new buyers that are looking for condos, I'm like, if you pick a building, I won't just tell you no, I'll tell you all the reasons why. We can still go look at it if you want to, but the beware list, the blacklist. So
Yes.
And if anyone knows Ian, you don't want to end up on his blacklist.
don't end up
No.
on my
There's
bad list.
There's a few
Yeah.
realtors on that list too, and it hasn't worked out so well for them.
Exactly.
Yeah, like if you see 15 units for sale in a building, it's probably an indication that it's
Yep.
not a well-run building, or the maintenance fees are high, or everyone hates living there and there's an issue. That's usually the dead giveaway. You're like, 15 listings in this one building.
And the prices are really good
Yes.
for the area.
What is going
Yeah.
on?
Yeah,
$700 a square foot in downtown Toronto. It's
Yes.
amazing.
I
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
So we can help you out with that, listeners. If you're ever considering a building and you want us to give you our insider information on that, we generally know. Or we don't generally know. We do know. All right. So this is a really good follow-up that came from the random generator, actually. It is really working.
Love that
on my
random
side today.
generator. It's so random.
It's so random.
So good at
know,
generating and so random.
It really is doing such a good job. Status certificates, the importance of those. I'm going to toss that to you, Ian.
Okay. The status certificate is, I like to use the term bill of health for a building.
Oh, nice.
It's it's basically, it's a legal document that the building has to be able to provide that outlines how it's doing financially. It will also include those rules and regulations that I mentioned before. You're buying into, like Ralph just said, the assets and liabilities of a corporation. So essentially what you're asking this building to do for you before you invest in it is to open its books and to kind of be completely transparent and declare everything that's going on, up to even perhaps the minutes of the last board meeting, so that you've got up to the moment updates on everything that's going on in there. What you'll do with a status certificate is a savvy agent will have that ready for you after you've looked at a unit and shown an interest in it. You will find a real estate lawyer that you can give that to and ask them to review it and share their notes with you. Some people like to go through it themselves. Some people find that it's difficult to understand. Our recommendation always is, even if you want to read it yourself, you should still get legal counsel to go over it with you as well. Especially someone, a family lawyer is great, but somebody who looks at these things all day, every day, and may already have history with that building is probably your best choice. And I'm getting away from the point here a little bit, and some lawyers will give you the straight goods and say, it's this, and it's this, and it's this, and not offer their opinion. I value when a lawyer says, it's this, and it's this, and it's this, and adds for people who don't know what they're really looking at. I don't see any red flags that are a reason to run away from this. Or I see some red flags and I proceed with caution, and here's why. So for those of us that are not in the legal profession, not accountants, et cetera, it's good to have someone on your side who can kind of explain these things, just like we're doing here. We do it in a real estate way. Having a lawyer that can kind of break this down into simpler terms for you is very, very helpful. But back to the status certificate. If the agent hasn't ordered one for you, or hasn't ordered one for their listing in advance, they will need to request one. It typically costs between $100 and $200. They can get them on a rush. A rush will still probably be 4 or 5 business days. Standard is about 10 business days. And they will absorb that cost. They will pay for it. They deliver it to you. You take it to your lawyer. This is all good and fine if you're looking at a unit that's been on the market for 30 days and no one else is interested. However, the status certificate can be an item that you need to get reviewed very quickly and come up with a decision about before an offer date, when things are moving lickety-split. So it's a very, very important part of the buying process with condos. It's kind of like the what am I looking for? I'm going to say the equivalent to a home inspection almost for
in
a
terms of
freehold
waiting it out.
property. Exactly. Yeah. So most people don't do a home inspection on a condo, and you can't obviously do a status certificate review on a freehold property. So in both
Totally
cases,
agree.
that's your way of checking as much as you possibly can before proceeding with a purchase.
Yeah. And the status certificate is going to tell you lots of things too, like are there any anticipated special assessments coming up in the building? What are the anticipated increases in maintenance fees? What does the reserve fund look like? All of this stuff is there to protect you as the purchaser well in advance so that you're not blindsided, a year or two after acquiring the property and all of these hidden costs are revealed. And it surprises me how many buyers we've worked with in the past on the resale side that have owned condos formally and worked with different agents that have never seen a status certificate or knew what a status certificate was and had no idea. I'm like, what? This is the most important part of buying a condo is the status certificate and its review. I cannot stress how important it is to have this reviewed. And then if there's questions that pop up in the status certificate via your lawyer or your own reading or your agent reading it, you can get more information from property management, and it's their job to be able to get you those details. So if there's anything you're ever unsure about or it's not clear or you need further due diligence, property management should be supplying that information to you. And always go in with your eyes wide open, particularly in this area with any condo building in Toronto or anywhere for that matter.
Yeah.
Ralph, do you want to add anything to status certificates? You look
No,
very excited right now.
I think you guys did a really good job.
Oh, thanks.
Also,
No, I do.
thank you, Ralph.
you.
I want to throw out
Thank
that it's 90% about the building, maybe even higher than that, and a small amount is actually about your unit specifically as well. So once you know that a building has problems, you can't move to the fourth floor and expect everything to be a ray of sunshine, right? So once you know a building has problems, you pretty much know that you should just stay away from that building.
Yeah.
Right. You can't go back and find a better status certificate the next month with a different unit.
Totally.
Just to be 100% clear.
Totally. Okay, I think I'm going to answer this one. Because
Okay.
I think I put this one into the pot. Okay, this is, I know, my writing's terrible. Please.
Development
viewers, if you're watching-
applications.
Oh, nice.
That's a good one.
Listeners,
Development applications.
watchers, may I please introduce Kori Marin, who will now tell us about development applications.
It surprises me how many agents don't even know they can look up development applications. So if you're in a condo and you look out at your beautiful view and you're like, wow, oh my gosh, I can see the lake and the CN Tower. Look at this gorgeous skyline. This is beautiful. And there's
This
a parking
huge
lot.
sunny terrace.
Yes. And there's a parking lot right beside you. I know this doesn't seem like a stretch here, but there's probably a chance that there's going to be a future development on that site. I know. Shocking. We live in a
Red
huge
flag.
city.
Red flag.
And it amazes me every time we list a property with this very setup. Agents will call me and be like, do you think there's going to be a building beside there one day? I'm like, what do you think? Like, really? Like, if you actually just sit there and think for 2 seconds, like, do you think the chances of a building going up in an empty parking lot are pretty high? Yes. But
Do you
what
think
can
the
do-
fact that that parking lot has hoarding around it and a giant sign saying
Is it a dead
development
giveaway?
application
The white
and
and,
that
blue
there's
one.
9 buildings for sale there's 9 units for sale in the building and
On that
every single-
exposure?
and
Yeah.
every single one of them is west facing? Like,
I know.
What
but
do you
I'm
think?
telling you. So you can go on the City of Toronto website and you can go to their development application section and you can see all the pins for all the different things that are going to be developed around your condo building. And it's like, and everyone knows that the development process takes forever here. So you get to see things way out in advance and have your eyes wide open once again about anything that might be popping up in your area. And it's important because, yes, you want to protect your exposure if you can, but also if any of you have lived near a construction site, these buildings don't go up overnight. Like, you're going to have to listen to like banging and dust and construction dust and all the sounds and beeping for like the next 4 years. So living near construction is not enjoyable, let alone losing your exposure if that's going to be the case. So please check the the development applications before you acquire a property. Your agent should be doing this for you. They really should. And if they're a moron and they're not doing it, which a lot of agents are morons, then please check yourself and go on the City of Toronto website. You can see so much information there, building heights, how many stories it's going to be, obviously, if it's going to be residential, commercial, mixed use, all of that information is there. You can often even see the renderings of the buildings that are going up, so you can get a sense of all of that. So I feel like this is a big time piece, and I think a lot of agents skip this part of their due diligence.
Yeah, and this isn't necessarily just for condos. If you're looking at buying a house, it could be Forest Hill or Rosedale. It doesn't matter. If you're close to a main thoroughfare, or, Eglinton is 1 or 2 streets over, or Avenue Road is, you should look to see if there's anything coming down those thoroughfares, because it can equally, and sometimes even more so, have an effect on a house or a neighborhood than a condo. So always keep your eyes open.
Yeah.
100%.
And sometimes these buildings can add value to your area too, and are not always a negative thing. You just want to know before you close on your property or purchase the property.
You don't want to pay a premium for an exposure that you're going to lose.
Yes. Yes, definitely. Okay. Guys, we're almost through the box.
Great job, guys. Great job.
Okay, well, I feel like this is kind of obvious but I'll just toss it out there. So, building location.
Pretty straightforward. Yeah.
Anyone confused by that?
We've already talked about location, proximity to transit, green space. Yeah, is there anything that we've left off that list that should still be covered?
Shopping, restaurants, bars, walkability score,
check.
Schools, all of that. The other thing I'll throw out there is there's different types of ways to look at location. There's premium locations in established neighborhoods. There's also up-and-coming locations.
Yeah.
So sometimes, you can be looking at a location and be like, okay, it's a little dodgy, but in a couple of years from now, because of X, Y, and Z, it won't be. And so you have an opportunity from an investment standpoint to pay at a lower price or premium, or not pay a premium, and they'd be able to take advantage of the upside as the area and location continues to gentrify.
Yes.
Yeah. What percentage of people in that building are renters versus owners? Right, which is another thing we haven't talked about. Are you moving into a rental party building?
Totally, and that's actually in the random generator because I had a sneak
I'm jumping
peek,
ahead.
But no, let's talk about it because it's a huge one.
Yeah.
So when you have your status certificate reviewed, there should be a disclosure as to how many units are rented versus how many are end user occupied. It's not always 100% accurate, but you're going to want to know what that is, because the more renters there are, generally speaking, the more of a party building it is. And then also, does the building permit Airbnb or short-term rental? And we're seeing more and more that most buildings are not permitting short-term rental for this reason. So protecting the integrity of the building. And so you want to see that they usually are not permitting. It's best in your best interest as an end user that they do not permit it. And that leases need to be 12 months or longer, so an extended lease. This will protect the building's value, and then you'll also avoid all those things like beer bottles in the elevator, puke in the stairwell, all the things that go along with a building that can often feel more like a hostel than a boutique building in the city. So this is a big thing to consider when looking at a building. And I find, so what happens is buildings kind of calm down. So when they first get constructed and registered, they'll be, and most of the time, a lot of investors have purchased these units. They will go out and rent them out right away. So for the first year to 3 years, there's a lot of rentals in the building until there's that first turnover. And once that first turnover starts happening and investors are now getting their ROI on their property and an end user comes to acquire, then there's a settling of the building. It starts to flip from being more renter-centric to more end-user-centric. And that's like a nice sweet spot to be in a building. The maintenance fees have not gone up too much and the building's in still really good condition. And so it's kind of like a nice time to be looking at a residential resale condo in that exact time period if you're wanting to avoid those big towers that are party.
Yep. We call that the Goldilocks zone. It's not too hot, not too cold. It's just right.
Exactly.
It's funny, one of the things, we don't get these calls really anymore, but there was a time where people were like, yeah, I want a condo and I want to get a couple of them and I want to Airbnb them out. And I'm like, listen, man, you don't want to own a condo in a building that will allow you to Airbnb it. And they're like, why? And I'm like, well, your cash flow might be okay. You're going to pay taxes on your profit, but your net is not going to be as great as you think it's going to be. But even more importantly than that, the value of your unit is going to go way down significantly when it comes time to sell, because people don't want to pay a premium to live in an Airbnb building. And so these conversations we used to have ad nauseum, going back probably pre-COVID, I would think, somewhere in around there. But these conversations are fewer and far in between. And, like even recently we had a client and she was like, I'm in the city half the year probably and not the other half. And can I Airbnb it out the other half? And, I'm like, do you want to be in a nice building that's going to retain its value and appreciate? She's like, yeah. And we're like, well, it's not going to happen for you. Yeah. So get Airbnb out of your head. Yes. And look for a really good property that is in a great location and has all of the properties that we've discussed today.
Yep. And live in it yourself or find a full-time tenant.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. There's not very many topics left. Well, actually, there's quite a few. So let's hustle through.
All right. Speed round.
speed
Yeah.
round. You want to do a speed round?
Speed round.
Okay. So, Ian, I know you're really good at doing this. Speak to existing residents while you're looking at the property.
Yes.
30 seconds.
30 seconds. When you are in the hallway, in the elevator with some time to kill, if you spot somebody, I'll do this all the time. Jump in the elevator, somebody else gets in, you say, hey, nice weather we're having, and strike up a conversation. Ask if they're an end user, ask if they're a renter. Ask them how they like the building. Ask them if they have any significant complaints. I've learned a lot of important things that are not in a status certificate from somebody in an elevator with the client standing right there listening. Do it.
Hot tip, listeners.
And I'm just going to add one other thing. There is such a thing as friendly buildings. There are certain buildings where people seem really friendly. I have no idea why. Maybe it's the Park 120 Bayview, like the friendliest buildings in the city. Everyone stops. There's lots of dogs of all sizes. People are happy. They're talking. Such a happy building. And so there are happy buildings and there are sour buildings and there are retirement homes. So, it's really good to understand which vibe is your vibe.
What's happening?
Because every building really does have its own personality.
So true. All right. I like that you guys just whipped that into shape for me. This is a good one from the random generator to top that off. What about, Ralph, does the building's age matter? Speaking of retirement homes.
Yes, it does. The first thing to consider is new buildings are covered under Tarion warranty. And it depends on what the item is, but I think it's something like plumbing is 3 years, electrical is 2 years, structural is 7 years. So having all of that covered by insurance, super helpful because it holds the developer accountable if there's any issues that come up. So people aren't necessarily aware that they have those protections under Tarion. And as a building over time becomes older, like we talked about, those maintenance fees start to creep up and costs start to creep up, and it does affect values. And at some point, the rate of appreciation will start to slow down significantly. And from an investment standpoint anyways, it's that sweet spot of a time that you may want to consider selling and moving on to something else.
I would just like to add, though, that older buildings are better built. And so if you can
Some.
find some,
yeah.
not all, but there are some older buildings where the property management company has done a very good job keeping the maintenance fees in check.
True.
And you can get a nice, beautiful suite where they have constructed them very well, and they're great soundproofing, not too many floors, lots of elevators, great services.
Yeah.
So I don't think that our listeners out there should knock them. I think it really does at all. And I think that they can sometimes be, if you can renovate an older unit that has good maintenance fees, you're going to get a lot of bang for your buck.
Yeah. Adult size rooms, adult size appliances.
Yeah. Adult size.
Right?
Some of
adult
them, like
size.
I love the Summit at King and Bathurst. You have working fireplaces in some of the suites in there.
Exactly.
Like, you
Yeah.
can't find that today.
Not at
Yeah.
all. Okay, well, speaking of well-managed buildings, does property management matter, Ian?
Oh, yeah, absolutely 100%. So there are some really good professional property management companies, and those companies, when we see those on a listing as the property management company, it makes us all sort of breathe a sigh of relief. It's like, okay, the status certificate for this is probably going to be pretty good. The building's probably in good shape, et cetera, et cetera. It's not a guarantee, but it's kind of our first indicator. If it's a good company, it's going to be well run. Absolutely.
Totally.
I'm going to push back on you and say that the companies mean less. The actual property manager means more. And I'll give the analogy of the bank. It doesn't matter if you're at CIBC or
Right.
Bank of Montreal
It's a good
or
point.
RBC. It's who your bank manager is. And you can be I love CIBC. They're amazing. I've got the best bank. That bank manager leaves and you've got a bad bank manager. CIBC then sucks. And so I really think who the property manager is matters more than the company. There is some correlation where some companies have more or better property management managers on the whole, but it's really the relationship with the property managers. And there are some, they get back to you right away. They answer all your questions. They're so polite. They're there to serve the owners of the building, and they really take their job and professionalism to the next level. And then there's others that just not so much. Like you can't even get an answer out of them. And I'm thinking to myself, how are you best serving the owners of this building? And so it's the actual manager for me and the relationship with that manager. And if you have a good relationship with a manager in a building, it's amazing how your entire experience and your client's experience can totally be different from the exact same building that could be next door, even the same condo corp or the same development or same developer, and it's totally different. And we've seen this happen time and time again.
This is a good question to ask the residents in the building when you're in the elevator. Like, how's property management here? And then they will give you the quick insider on that very question. Because that's a difficult thing to figure out when you're looking blind at a building. So I think
Excellent
that's
point.
a good tip.
Yep.
Okay, let's see. This is the last one. Oh, we answered it already, guys. This was about short-term rental and Airbnb, which we've already answered. So, in summary, is there anything we didn't cover today? I thought we gave some great tips to our listeners and viewers out there. Ian, you want to jump in?
I just wanted to jump in, and I thought of it earlier. I just took a note because I wanted to come back around.
Yeah.
Because we talked about amenities and how they add up and how they can push a maintenance fee up. We talked about status certificate and what's in there. I think there might be some people watching this who say, well, what about, a building that was that basically has no amenities, no concierge, but there's still a $400 or $500 maintenance fee. There's 80 units in this smaller building. There's nobody at the front door. There's no pool. There's no gym. There's no anything, just a security system. But my maintenance fee is $400 or $500 a month. What does that cover? So I think we should kind of talk a little bit about what's going into the reserve fund and why. And the fact that there are still expenses, even though you're not seeing them, like who's cleaning those hallways once a week? Who's cleaning the interior of the elevator, right? Does anybody want to take that one on and sort of break down how a maintenance fee works when you can't really visually see where that money's going?
Yeah, I think the first thing for people to understand who may not be aware of this is that you don't really own as much as you think you own when you own a condo. So anything from the walls out, meaning your balcony, meaning the glass, meaning the hallway, meaning your door. There are just so many, the plumbing that runs above it, the plumbing that runs below it. There's just so many items and so many aspects to a condo that you don't own that do require maintenance that need to be paid for. Parking lots, underground parking have foundation issues eventually over time. Cracks will appear over time. Drywall, will get holes in them or, scuffed up or, roofs need to be replaced. You got to have landscaping out front. There's security
Snow
and
removal.
cost to security, snow removal, insurance. That's a big one. I can't tell you how many status certificates I've seen where there's a slip and fall lawsuit. You know, I think every condo in the city now
They
has
love
one.
slip and fall.
Yeah, the slip and falls. Some of them usually like under $1 million.
I'm like, oh, it's just a slip and fall. It's fine.
Yeah, insurance will cover it.
It'll settle out of court, and insurance will pay for it.
Yeah.
Your maintenance fees will go up $50. But like there's a lot to owning a property that when you actually start to think about it outside of your condo, it starts to become expensive. And you know, it's not a bad exercise to one day review your status certificate and take a look and look at the budget and actually do the thing that nobody does or very few people do, and actually go to a condo corp meeting or get involved or vote, and you'll see how onerous it is. I mean, I've never been on a condo corp, but you talk to people. Yeah, it's anybody that I know that has done it has told me not to do it, because what they thought would be kind of fun and interesting ends up being extremely time consuming, stressful, and not necessarily a pleasant experience, and very thankless as well. So,
yeah.
And I think this actually is a really good question that you brought up, Ian. And I think you'll see that oftentimes in like a loft conversion building. So, you know, an old factory that's been converted into a beautiful like 70 suites. And they might not even have underground parking. They might have surface parking, because obviously they're not going to build underground parking under a beautiful old factory.
They can't.
And so they can't. So you'll often see a little bit of higher fees in these like premium character buildings, and they don't have a lot of amenities because the cost to run those buildings and to heat and cool them and run the mechanicals and keep them up to date, you know, even the masonry work and all those things, that has to be all looked after, and that's what brings up the fees. But you're right, it is sort of a question. People are like, I don't get it. Why am I paying all these fees for nothing?
Who's getting my $500? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So that's a really good point. Anything else you want to add to this topic? Because these are such important things to consider when buying a condo, and I feel like a lot of buyers and their agents overlook all of these things, which really are the meat and potatoes of condo life, which can be really awesome. I personally have loved living in condos over the years. Not all of the buildings I've lived in, but many of them, because it truly is maintenance free. Like, it's like living in a hotel.
Ralph,
I've always loved it.
Ralph touched on a thing. Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
He was saying, you know, what you own and what you don't own. I think it's very important. We touched on how the pet restrictions are in the rules and regulations, but everyone, even if you don't touch the status certificate for any other reason, should go over those in detail to find out, can I have a barbecue on this terrace? Right? If I'm in a townhouse, can I put some patio furniture outside the door, or is that common elements where I'm not allowed to do that? You know, every other rule and regulation about bikes, hours of operation of the gym. Yeah. Exactly. So I think, you know, even if you don't do the numbers, if you leave a lot of this up to the lawyer, make sure that you go through that, because, again, to beat this over and over again, you want to go in eyes wide open. You don't want a rude awakening after spending hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars on this investment. I think
the one real way to sort of sum this up is, you could have 3 condos side by side. They could be all built by the same developer or built by different developers, all at the same time or over time. And what you'll see is each one will be very different from the other in terms of how they're run, in terms of the rules and regulations, in terms of the reserve funds, in terms of maintenance fees, in terms of appreciation, in terms of values, in terms of everything. So don't make assumptions because you were in one condo and had an experience or saw what it sold for or looked at that status certificate, that the same is going to apply for the one next door to it or the one down the block, because every building is its own personality, is its own economic ecosystem, and is its own environment. And you should really respect that. And the more you respect that, I think the better your outcome will be if you're looking to purchase something.
That's great.
Yep.
And also, for our listeners out there, we're going to do another episode soon on suite selection specifically. So how to buy a great floor plan. whether it's residential, resale, or pre-construction. And we have a lot of great ideas and insights on that. So be sure to tune back in for that episode, because that's where we're going to get into the juxtaposition of, all of the things floor plan related and all of those details, and a lot of those things people overlook as well if they've never lived in a condo. So I am so grateful that you both participated in the random generator today. I think that we tossed out some great ideas for our viewers. Of course, if you have questions or comments, please pop them in below for us, and we're happy to respond anytime. Anything to say on our way out the door today, boys?
No, I think that was great.
Okay.
I think we should do another random generator episode sometime soon, too. That was a lot of fun.
Awesome. All right. Take care. Thank you, everyone. Ralph, want to take us away?
Smash that like button down below. Subscribe, comment, give us your feedback. We'd love to hear from you. And just smash that red thing right below, right there.
Thanks for
Ciao.
watching.